Good evening, you're watching AWANI Tonight with me, Hafiz Marzuki. Malaysia has successfully attracted potential foreign investments amounting to 76.1 billion ringgit as of March this year. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim says this was the result of the country's successful trade and investment missions in Australia, Germany and France.
However, Anwar stressed that there was still much room for improvement, including in terms of speeding up project approvals.
Kita harus terjemahkan ini. Maknanya potensi kita kalau kita dapat sustain effort ini dan tingkatkan sedikit lagi. Saya fikir 2 tahun, 3 tahun lagi itu wajah Malaysia itu akan berubah. Tapi dia memerlukan kesungguhan dan tekad semua.
He says Malaysia is expected to strengthen further with growth forecasts of 4 to 5%. Factors that would support the improvement in economic performance include the decline in the unemployment rate, which fell to 3.3% in January 2024, and the inflation rate, which fell to 1.6% in the fourth quarter of 2023 from 2% in the third quarter of 2023.
The Education Ministry aims to move the start of the school year back to January from 2026. Minister Fadilina Sidek says her ministry is committed to restoring the academic session to its pre-pandemic state.
The academic calendar has had to be adjusted to begin in March since 2022 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Earlier this week, Deputy Education Minister Wong Kah-Wah said the government had begun efforts to begin the 2024-2025 academic calendar in February 2025. Fadlina added that the government was actively working to extend compulsory education to the secondary school level. She said a proposal would soon be submitted to the Cabinet before the drafting of amendments to the Education Act 1995.
Some dilapidated school buildings have not been repaired for as long as 12 years due to a lack of funding. According to the Public Accounts Committee Chairperson, Datuk Mas Ermiati Samsudin, this is because the Education Ministry had to prioritise other schools that were more in need, leading to the delays.
Mas Ermiati said as a result of this, teaching and learning process were negatively affected and there are additional costs being borne by the government, such as to build temporary buildings for student relocation. The PAC recommends that the ministry enhance the planning and implementation of school maintenance and continuously engage the ministry's Development Action Committee. The PAC has given the ministry 2 months to report back its progress.
Malaysia Aviation Group (MAG) has posted an annual net profit for the first time since its inception in 2015. The group recorded a profit after interest and tax of 766 million ringgit compared to a net loss of 344 million ringgit in 2022.
MAG Group Managing Director Dato' Captain Izham Ismail said the strong performance was driven by robust premium segment passenger traffic, active capacity management and higher yields in the group's passenger segment. MAG, the parent company of Malaysia Airlines Berhad (MAB), was established in 2015 following Malaysia Airlines' 5th turnaround plan. Meanwhile, MAB achieved an operating profit of over 1 billion ringgit in 2023, more than 13 times higher than the 80 million ringgit recorded in 2022, on the back of increased capacity amid strong passenger demands. MAB had restored 86% of its pre-pandemic capacity by the end of December 2023, with full recovery expected by the second quarter of this year. In addition to MAB, MAG's airline operations include Firefly, Mars Wings and Amal, the group's Hajj and Umrah pilgrimage arm.
The government's proposed amendments to the federal constitution will finally allow Malaysian mothers to confer citizenship to their children born overseas. But it comes with a raft of other amendments that Suryani Kemper, president of Family Frontiers, warns will do more harm than good. She joins the growing calls for the government to separate the proposed package of amendments and only proceed with the ones for mothers.
should the government succeed in passing the current package as it stands, instead of addressing statelessness, ironically, what the proposed regressive amendments will do is manufacture and exacerbate statelessness in Malaysia. Now, how? So it does this by narrowing and removing existing protections. So protections that currently exist within the federal constitution. It aims to narrow them and remove them, which in effect will cause disastrous consequences to already vulnerable groups of people. And the people that we're talking about are persons with long-standing residence since before independence and their descendants. So people who may have not succeeded in getting citizenship, but instead were issued a red IC and permanent resident status. Foundlings, abandoned children born in Malaysia, adopted children, children born out of wedlock, and indigenous persons as well, orang asli and orang asal, both in Semenanjung and the Borneo states, right? Now, these are people who have been born here, but are not given nationality for whatever reason. Now, under existing provisions of the federal constitution, the law now, it says that they qualify for Malaysian citizenship. And so, in essence, they cannot be deported or sent home to somewhere else because they have no other home. Their home is here.
Suryani further explained the consequences if the current package of proposed amendments are tabled and passed in Parliament.
The proposed amendments will worsen this current situation. It will increase the number of stateless children, whose children in turn, because they're stuck here, because they have no passport and they cannot, in fact, leave the country to secure a better future, they will also have children, and their children in turn will inherit statelessness. And all of these individuals then will be unable to access basic rights. It will impair their ability to earn a decent living, and it will increase their risk of exploitation and trafficking.
According to Home Minister Dato Sri Saifuddin Nasution Ismail, among the reasons for amending Malaysia's citizenship laws is to prevent abuse by foreigners. Suryani stresses the importance of ensuring that such changes are based on data and a clear understanding of the short and long-term consequences.
The ministry so far has not provided any evidence in terms of numbers to show the scale of the abuse. Every request for data has been sidestepped, not just by NGOs and civil society groups that are working on the ground, but also requests by Suhakam. We've also encountered similar instances. For example, we are given to understand that one of the provisions, the government intends to amend one of the provisions, in particular, specifically Article 26(2), to allegedly curb marriages of convenience. Now, the government's proposal is to give itself the power to strip a previously non-citizen wife, who's now received her Malaysian citizenship, if the marriage is dissolved within 2 years after she obtains citizenship. Currently, it is after her marriage, but now it is after she obtains her citizenship, which will, in effect, leave her stateless if that happens. However, when we asked this question to the Ministry of Home Affairs, the Deputy Minister actually said at a special chamber session that the ministry does not, in fact, have any data on marriages of convenience. So in other words, the government is really attempting to make a constitutional amendment to solve a problem that it cannot prove exists because it has no data. And so we are underlining the fact that it is so crucial that any amendments to the federal constitution, more so ones that take away existing rights, need to be done based on evidence. And currently, we have not seen any of it.
We'll go for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken says the US has submitted a draft resolution to the UN Security Council calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, linked to the release of hostages held by Hamas. The diplomat made the announcement during a tour of the Middle East that includes a stop in Israel. The United States has vetoed previous UN Security Council votes on the nearly 6-month-old war. As recently as February, it objected to the use of the term immediate in a draft put forward by Algeria. In recent weeks, however, Washington has stepped up pressure on its ally, while insisting that Hamas must immediately release the hostages seized in the 7th October attacks. Australia will start enforcing tougher visa rules for foreign students as official data shows migration has hit another record high. English language requirements for students and graduate visas will be increased from Saturday. The government will also be given the power to ban education providers from recruiting international students if they repeatedly break the rules.
In a statement, Home Affairs Minister Claire O'Neill said the measures would further reduce migration levels while fixing the broken migration system its administration inherited. He said a new genuine student test would be introduced to further crack down on international students who want to come to Australia primarily to work. The move follows a raft of measures last year to roll back concessions introduced by the previous government, including unlimited working hours for international students. The government said at the time that it plans to halve the number of migrants over 2 years.
Indonesian presidential candidate Anies Baswedan filed a legal case at the Constitutional Court to challenge the outcome of an election won overwhelmingly by Prabowo Subianto. The call came just hours after official election results late on Wednesday showed a thumping victory for Prabowo, who won almost 60% of the vote.
Former Jakarta Governor Anies, who took 25% of votes, filed the case with the court on Thursday. And rival Ganjar Pranowo, who won 16%, said he too would contest the result in the same court. The legal team of Anies said Prabowo's victory had come as a result of interference by the administration. They criticized the Constitutional Court's last-minute decision last year to change election rules, which allowed the son of former President Joko Widodo, Gibran Rakabuming Raka, to become Prabowo's running mate. Anies's team has also alleged widespread allocation of social assistance, such as rice, fertilizer and cash handouts in key electoral areas, which they said influenced the vote. The administration has rejected both allegations.
Vietnam's legislature has approved the resignation of President Vo Van Thuong, who stepped down yesterday after barely a year in office. The 53-year-old's departure comes amid an intensified anti-graft crackdown by the ruling Communist Party.
Thursday's vote by the National Assembly is largely a procedural move after the party's Central Committee announced Thuong's resignation on Wednesday, saying he was guilty of unspecified violations and shortcomings. It also removed him from the Politburo, the party's top decision-making body, and his position as head of the National Defence and Security Council. Meanwhile, Vice President Vo Thi Eng Xuan has been appointed as acting head of state. Xuan had previously filled the vacancy in the 6 weeks after Thuong's predecessor stepped down as president last year, amid allegations of abuses and misconduct by officials under his control.
That wraps up Awani Tonight. I'm Hafiz Marzuki. Thanks for watching and good night.